My full maiden name is Carol Ann Yackel Duffy.
My name is Thomas W. Duffy. Middle name is Walter.
I was born August 1st, 1934, at Riverview Memorial Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota.
I was born in Superior, Douglas County, Wisconsin, and I don't know the hospital. And the date was December 29th, 1933. Long time ago.
My mother was Mabel Gladys Olson, and my dad's name was Martin William Yackel. And he was born in Lamberton, Minnesota, and my mom was born in Sloan, Iowa. My mother's family came from Norway, and my dad's came from Germany. It's funny because my dad talks about being High Dutch and Low Dutch, and I think he was High Dutch, whatever that means.
My father's name was Walter John Duffy, and my mother's name was Eva Addie Duffy. My father was Irish and my mother was English. My grandmother, on my mother's side, her name was Alice, Mary Alice Somerville, and my dad's, I forgot what his father's name was. They came from Eau Claire and settled here. And a generation before that, they came from Ireland, on my father's side.
I have four brothers, 2 older and 2 younger. Unfortunately, yes, all 4 brothers are gone.
There were 6 natural-born children in my family, and then my parents adopted a son, so a total of 7. And there was 4 girls, natural girls, and 2 boys, and then the adopted boy. They were all raised in Hayward. The girls all moved away except one, and the 3 boys all live here.
Unfortunately, I lost my mother and my father when I was in high school. And then my brothers had to move to the farm to be with my Uncle Jack down on the farm. He was my dad's brother. It was on the outskirts of St. Paul, West St. Paul.
Well, my mother and father lived through the Depression, so my dad was first of all the Register of Deeds, and he did abstracts of title, and as a young man, and then he ran for the county judge where he served for over 20 years. He supplemented his income with a small farm. He originally came from a farm, and so he had always 1 or 2 cows, and he would milk the cows and get cheese, and then he'd have a calf that he'd slaughter for meat in the springtime. So, and the boys of the family learned to milk cows and help with cutting corn and cultivating and riding horses to cultivate corn and that sort of thing. My mother basically, as a young woman, taught school, but then as the children were raised, she stayed at home. So she was a stay-at-home mother. We just lived the normal life. Lives were simple, much simpler in those days than they are now. We had no television and watched little radio. We lived in the summer out a cottage my dad had built out on the Nemacolin River, out by the bowling alley, across by the bridge out there. So they have a place called the Point that's jutted out. So every summer we moved out there for 3 months, and then we moved back to town. And I was involved in sports, football, and more in basketball. And skiing, we didn't have any skiing in those days around here. So otherwise, my childhood was uneventful. I think, you go to school and come home, and I would go out and help milk the cows and come home and do some schoolwork and go to bed. Kind of not very challenging, not very exciting, but that was kind of the thing that young men did around those days.
I think I had a really wonderful childhood, although we were very poor. And I think I only had boys as friends. And we would shoot baskets until we couldn't see the rim of the basket anymore. And we played football, and because my two brothers were older, if they did 100 sit-ups, I did 100 sit-ups. And I just was a real tomboy, I guess. But I think through my whole young life and married life, I've always been an athlete. I remember in high school that the girls couldn't use the gym if the boys had the gym. So the girls got to use it if the boys weren't using it. Okay, and what, I don't know, I played football and basketball and skated and skied, and yeah, I had the most wonderful parents. And my mother said our prayers every night before we went to bed. And my dad was the most honest man I think that ever lived on this earth. And we went to church every Sunday, and I just had a very, very good background. When my mother died first, she had TB when she was a very young teenager, and so I think she always suffered from that. So, like I said, she died when I was 14, and my dad died 2 years later of a heart attack. Right in front of my two younger brothers. You know, I was 14 when my mother died, and that was devastating. And then 2 years later, my dad died, and then it was the middle of my senior year, and so the neighbor woman said that I could come and live with them so I wouldn't have to switch high schools. And then I moved in with the next door neighbors, and they paid for me to go to college. And I went to Hamlin University for like a year and a half, I think.
Oh, what's the worst thing I ever got in trouble for? I suppose it was driving my dad's car without his approval and without a license. But other than that, I was fairly well behaved. We didn't do any drinking. None of my friends drank in those days. So we didn't have a problem with drugs or alcohol or even girlfriends. We had a good basketball team, so we spent a lot of time summer and winter with playing that sport. I went to all the grade school here in Hayward. Both the high school and the grade school are now gone. And then I went to St. Thomas College in St. Paul. I went there in 51 to 55. And then I worked as a chemist for 2 years. And then I worked as a chemical engineer for a company called Remington Rand Univac. They were a government contract for printed circuits and computers. And that's when I went to an evening law school. So I went for 4 years to night law school, and then I left and came here.
I prayed so hard that God would send me a good and kind and faithful man. And he did. My prayers were answered. I was a nanny for some people that lived near St. Thomas, and I met him there, and I guess he fell in love with me. And that's it.
Oh, I met her at St. Thomas. She had some girlfriends that at the infirmary. So I got to meet her there, and I was working in the cafeteria in the building next. So once in a while we'd stop at the infirmary and say hello to the nurses, and so I met her there.
Well, I knew the nurses at the infirmary at St. Thomas, and Tom would come in there to visit them, and I think you asked one of them, do you think she would go out with me? And our first date was tobogganing on a very cold night.
So after that, we went out just a few times, and one thing led to the other, and here we are, 11 children later. St. Thomas was a male school only, so there weren't many females on the campus. So it's easy to spot one when you see one. And she was a nice-looking gal, so I thought, I'll give her a try.
What I loved about him, whenever he called me, he was funny. He would always say some kind of joke, and I thought, where does he get that? But it always made me laugh.
Well, the wedding date was, we just started. We got married in St. Paul and went to my aunt's place up in Duluth, Superior, Lake Superior. Spent a couple of days there and then came home.
But the woman that I was nannying for, she gave us a little party afterwards. And my brother walked me down the aisle. My brother, that's the Olympian. And I had a $25 wedding dress.
And it still fits her.
I put it on every anniversary, and we have our picture taken. He still has his white sport coat. And when I came to Hayward, some of the women told me, you have married the most handsome man in Hayward.
They were drinking.
And I said, I hope I can live up to that.
I had my own law firm, and we also had a real estate company for a number of years till a partner I had died. And when I moved up here, I was going to move in with a lawyer by the name of Davis, Vince Davis. He was just elected the county judge, and he had a 6-month waiting time before he took office. Actually, the judge then was my father. So I was in work with Davis, and just before I arrived, he had a stroke. So I moved up to the office and had nobody. I was just the secretary and myself. But it's tough to start without having any guidance at all. One of the first things we had after a week, the judge said, "You know what? You need some experience, and I'm going to appoint you to a criminal matter here." And it was a homicide. So I said, "Wow." We tried the homicide case. We lost it, but it was a good battle. But it's a tough way to start. Some of the highlights is, you get some of the marriages that you can patch up. Some of them you look at and you can't patch up. Some of them you think maybe I should have done something differently. So a lot of satisfaction out of adoptions but I say divorces. A lot of them you can do a lot of good things with them. A lot of estate planning, you find, especially with second marriages, people come in and want the damnedest things in their wills, and you got to say, you know what, I don't think in the long run that's what you want. And usually if you talk to them long enough, they look at it again. And again, it's their will, but especially with second and third marriages and children from all of different spouses, it's just a difficult challenge, but it's tough to leave some of them out. Or the spouse, the last spouse gets all the funds, and the earlier ones get nothing. It's so there's a lot of satisfaction. There's a lot of disappointments also. Sometimes you think the jury made the wrong decision, and I guess who knows? Maybe they made the right one. And that's part of the excitement. You don't know what it's going to be.
I look at my kids, and I'm really happy and proud of who they've become and how they've raised their children and what they have done. And it could not be a better legacy for us.
The highlights were raising the children. We got satisfaction out of doing that and their involvement in their activities, whether it was dancing for the girls or hockey and football and baseball for the boys. I think with 11 children, you have to have some order or you have chaos. So it was maybe more like a military school. And they all had jobs. They all got up in the morning and they helped with setting the tables and oftentimes Carol would take care of the babies, but whether it was the toast or the oatmeal but they had every meal together. There was never somebody grab your own meal or get some cold cereal and run by yourself or eat at school. There was meals here always, and we always ate with them. And they always said their prayers, and so you had some structure in the whole thing. But there was a lot of noise and a lot of excitement, and you wanted to be sure they got their books and whatever to go to school, and to be sure they had in the cold weather they had their jackets and mittens and overshoes. And the early years they walked to school, and in the last couple of years we were driving them. But nowadays most of them are riding back and forth. You see the parking lot over there. Wow, we didn't have anything like that in my day or our kids' days. Well, you look at that picture of all those kids and you think, my God, where did that come from? And it almost doesn't seem real, but there they are. At Christmas time or at Easter when they all come home, you realize, yeah, it is real. There are that many.
We have 34 grandchildren and 31 great-grandchildren. And of the 31, 21 are just these adorable little boys. And I just have to say, maybe I was so busy, I didn't get to really what's the word I want to use? I just adored those children. And now I see all these little grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I just can see my younger kids in them, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, there's 34 grandchildren and 31 great-grandchildren, and Carol keeps track of them. I can't keep track of them, and she's got them on the calendar, and we've had calendars where they have pictures on them. There's so many names on there, I can't keep track of them. And then after a while, they should look alike. There's a lot of similarities. You see one, and I can't remember if that one belongs to who.
For me, as I'm looking back, I wish I would have done a better job of talking to them about how important their faith is. But, that is a gift, and so they're just going to have to figure that out themselves.
I tell them, life is short, and it comes to an end, and it comes to an end a lot faster than you think. And you better realize you're responsible, and no one else is responsible for what you've done and where you've gone. And if you believe in a life hereafter, you better plan for it. And that's the most important thing I think you have to do. Enjoy your life, but don't forget your responsibilities, and take care of your friends and your family, and appreciate them. They're a blessing in your life. I think the biggest thing I would just say is you're lucky to have a good mother and one who's instilled good values into you, and just listen to what those are. And again, don't forget you're not going to be here forever, and you'll pass on to your children just like we're passing on to you. Get good values, and hopefully they'll lead good lives, and lives that you'll be proud of.
One magical day, Tony Wise said to me and Tom, "How would you guys like to be the first ones to ski the World Lopet?" "Sure, we can do that."
So he, through his acquaintances, got a Swede who sent over a Swede to start cross-country skiing, and they weren't Norwegian, they were Swedes, and so they started the Brookminer. Carol won the first Quadruped, And then Tony got involved with the Whirlopit, which is just an association of existing races worldwide and the most prestigious races. And Tony said, let's get them all together and call it a Whirlopit.
We did all those ski races. We did 7 ski races in one winter. And the longest one was 90K, and the shortest one was probably like our Berkey. They were all much longer, 60, 70. I've skied, I think, 10 Berkeys, but then 9 of the Whirlopit races. Raising my kids and doing that day after day after day after day is what prepared me to ski 90K or 80K or 70K.
We skied in all the Nordic countries. Where there was snow, we were there. And I would go to Europe 3 times or 4 times a year, skied a lot of the races and went just to meetings and others. But the Scandinavian countries and Europe, I went to all of those, Australia, Japan.
We decided we would ski these races. And then when we were on our way over there, he told me that, oh yeah, women aren't allowed to ski the Swedish race. I said, well, we already have our plane tickets. Oh, well, but you're lucky because you get to ski 70K on Sunday in Finland, and then you get to travel to Sweden and you get to ski 90K on Wednesday with 2 days rest. And then the head of the German race came to me at a cocktail party and said, we've just had a meeting and we have decided that women are strong enough to ski the 90K. We ran together. When I say we went for a 10-mile run in the morning, that's what we did. We skied, we swam, we raced a sailboat, we
ran to Cable every Sunday morning and had dinner at Cable. And the kids would pick us up and bring us back. We ran marathons together, and Carol couldn't swim, so one of the challenges in this American Classic was she had to swim 2 miles. So we had a German exchange student we bribed her to swim with Carol to finish the swim. But she finished second of all those people.
I could not turn over on my stomach. I had to go like this for 2 hours.
But did well enough in the other events to finish up at the top. So
I did it.
Yeah.
And in fact, they even wrote an article about me in Extreme Sports. All 5 events.
Yeah. But finishing the Whirlopit was the big thing.
Honey, walking the Camino was a big thing.
Yeah, it was a big thing too. Yeah. Well, we did a lot of big things. Tough to say which one did you enjoy more.
Yeah, we did.
Well, you enjoy doing it together. That's the fun thing.
Yeah, he wasn't off leaving me alone at home with the kids.
But what makes a marriage together is doing things together, and that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. I've always wanted to walk the Camino de Compostela, which starts in France and ends at Santiago, Spain. And I didn't get to do the whole trail, but we got to do enough of it that we would be considered a pilgrim. So that was like 100 and some miles. And that was my absolutely biggest accomplishment, because we were both 77 at the time. And we had our picture taken next to the 77K marker, and that was really, really a lifelong ambition.
There's a friend of ours in town whose name was Fred Morgan. He was a photographer, worked for Tony Wise, did some publications on natural animals and in the wild in northern Wisconsin. And he had a friend named Ken Hyman, who was a national photographer. And Life magazine was having a special edition put out on the one day in the life of America in September of '74. This guy was asked to pick any family he wanted to show what family life is in Wisconsin. So Fred asked us whether we'd be interested in talking to this guy. And we said, yeah, okay. So we came to the house and took some pictures and said, if you want on, I'll come. So he came. He spent the night here, actually. Took pictures in bed and
Yeah,
whatever.
he slept right on this couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we saw it the photographer, the editor sent us a copy of the magazine before it come out. But I think there are 6 pictures in that magazine.
Yeah, you had a lot of pictures.
Well, here's the page. One day in the life of America. Okay. And it covers it's January or September of '74. You can't see that probably. And then it's got pictures of every walk of life, the president down to slaves. And we have 6. And the second to the last picture is a picture of Carol and I in bed.
And I can remember that we were just exhausted, and we heard a knock on the door, and he said, would you mind if I came in and took a picture? And I go, I don't. We look exhausted.
So he had to run to the house for any pictures he wanted, but the one
Yeah.
picture he wanted that Carol wouldn't go along with it, he wanted a picture of her nurse breastfeeding.
Yes.
Too prudish for that. So
Yeah.
So anyway, we were just proud to have that picture, that in the Life magazine.
Oh, and when I was thinking about all these wonderful things that we've experienced, we had Christmas at the White House when our son Sean was a congressman, and we met Barack and Michelle Obama in this beautiful, beautiful
Actually, there
White
twice.
House. Yes, twice. It was just gorgeous. In the beginning, I was kind of the one who did like the physical work, and I would just have to say that if my boys, my sons, can treat their wives as wonderfully and beautifully as Tom has loved me, they've done their work. Because I'm a little bit infirm now, so he has to do so many things to help me. And I told him, not once does he go, or you're just a pain, or I'm tired of helping you, or whatever. Never, ever complains about helping. He did everything. And now he does everything for me. And that's why I started to cry.
I think what it really is. Once you make a commitment, you stick with the commitment and say, you know what, the damn thing's going to work. At times you want to kick their ass out and say, I'm on my own, I'm grabbing a freight out of town. But you don't. Tomorrow's a better day. So I don't think there's any marriages that are the perfect marriage made in heaven. They all got problems. And the question is, do you solve them or you throw in the towel?
We had the perfect marriage made in
Okay.
heaven.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I see that at work. I see that those that are determined to make it work, in most cases, sometimes they're hopeless, but in most cases, reasonable people can work it out if they want to.
What can I say when I've had 11 children and I took care of them and I raised them? And I mean, that's a pretty big life accomplishment, I feel. Over above any race I skied or anything. And that's what I would say to those German doctors that were telling me they did a study and I was strong enough to ski the race. And I said, let me tell you, raising kids was way harder, way harder. You guys, I love you from the bottom of my heart. And all these wonderful grandkids and great-grandkids and sweet little boys and sweet little girls. And I just wish I could hold you close my whole life.
I think they have to realize that although now they feel that they're immortal and life goes on, everything comes to an end, and their life is coming to an end also, and live it so that you, on the last day, are proud of what you've done. And you do something now in your life that's helpful to other people, and it makes you happy. And what more does life offer? And we love them all and wish them the best, and hope that they live their life with meaning. You've got 11 children here to prove that she's been kissed once or twice. Oh.
Okay, I think when I began, I said because my parents weren't there, I just knelt down on the floor and just asked God to please send me a good man to love.
And then you got me. What a joker.
And I couldn't have asked for more.
We love you, all of you guys, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and whoever else follows.
I just love you so much. To the moon and back.